In this video, we're going to add and subtract integers. Now here's the first rule. When the signs are the same, add the numbers and keep the sign. Alright, so for example, something like 3 plus 4. These have the same sign. This 3 is really a plus 3, but we don't show it. So 3 plus 4, we know it's 7. Here's another one. How about negative 3 plus negative 7? Okay, in this case, yes, it says to add these two integers, negative 3 and negative 7. But which one do we use, the positive or the negative? The first thing we need to do is figure out what these two signs are. A positive times a negative, when you multiply those two, and how do I know I'm multiplying it? Because there's a parenthesis in between the two signs, the positive and the negative. But positive times negative is going to give me negative. So I'm going to rewrite this to negative 3 take away 7 equals, and now I could use this rule. If the signs are the same, you add the numbers. 7 plus 3 is 10, and you keep the sign. And there it is. That one wasn't that difficult maybe, or I made it more complicated than it is. But sometimes you have problems that look like this. Negative 10 minus 8 equals. And sometimes you're like, well, this problem here we're going to add, right? But how do we know we're adding? Well, we know that if they have the same sign, you add. 10 plus 8 is 18, and you keep the sign. If you don't like that, then maybe what you should do is, if the signs are the same, then you put a plus sign and you separate it like this, so you can see that you are adding these two, and then you do the problem. Okay, and we're going to do a few more. How about if we had something like 6 take away negative 4? Now, in this case, it looks like, well, we have to be subtracting. But if we're going to follow this rule that says when the signs are the same, add the numbers and keep the sign, if we want to use that rule, we're going to have to first deal with this. Two negatives make a positive, so that's 6 plus 4, which when you add those, now it gives you 10. Okay. Another problem might be negative 8 take away 8, let's say. This one looks kind of funny. Well, here we have a plus sign next to the 8. Okay, and now we have to deal with this, and we get negative 8. A negative times a positive is going to be a negative, and we have another 8. And in this case, we got negative 8 take away 8. The signs are the same. We add the numbers, and then we keep the sign. Or an alternative way is, well, you can switch it. You have negative 8, and then switch the signs. Positive, negative 8 equals, now you're adding, and then you're adding two negatives, which would be negative 16. Okay, so when the signs are different, subtract and keep the sign of the larger number. Quote, larger number. Larger number is not correct in the terms that we're going to do here on these problems. What it really means is the larger absolute value. But here, let me show you. So for example, 5 take away 3 equals. Well, here you'll note that this is a positive 5, but usually we don't show it. So the signs are different. If the signs are different, we subtract. Now we usually don't say that because 5 take away 3 is, we've done these type of problems a lot. But 5 take away 3 is 2, and it's plus 2. And if you look at the rule, it says If the signs are different, then you subtract, in this case 2, and you keep the sign of the larger number. The larger number in this case is 5, which is a plus, and that's why it's a plus 2. That might sound very complicated. You know, why do all those things if 5 take away 3 is just 2? That's correct. But when we get more sophisticated problems, it's going to help us. For example, negative 5 plus 3. What does that equal to? Well, the signs are different. If the signs are different, what do? You subtract. Okay, you subtract. 5 take away 3 is 2. And then you keep the sign of the, quote, larger number. Between 5 and 3, which is the larger number? 5. Okay, so we put the sign of the larger number, in this case, it's going to be negative. Now here's a side note. Okay, yes, negative 5 is not larger than 3. But if we take the absolute value of 5 and the absolute value of 3, we'll see that 5 is larger than 3. And so this is where, you know, we have to use this rule, the absolute value. Do I need to know that? It might be helpful, might be more confusing, but the important thing is when the signs are different, you subtract and you keep the sign, quote, of the larger number. Let's move on. Let's move on to another one. Let's say 8 take away 10. The signs are different, right? This is a plus, this is a takeaway. So if the signs are different, you subtract. 10 take away 8 is going to give you what? That's right, 2. And you keep the sign of the larger one. This case is going to be negative. Because 10, right, is larger and it has the negative next to it. Let's do another one. Let's say we're doing negative 6 plus negative 7 equals. In this case, you might say, well, this is just like the problem that we were doing before. And this is right. Even though they have a lot of signs, look, this we need to get rid of first. So a positive times a negative is going to give you a negative. So negative 6 minus 7 equals. So here the signs are not different after you simplify. The signs are not different. And so if the signs are the same, what do? That's right, you add. So that's going to be what, 12, 13? And you keep the sign, right? Why did I show you this in this section? Just because sometimes you'll see pluses and takeaway signs and you're not subtracting. Let's do another one. Let's do negative 6 take away negative 4 equals. Again, we got to get rid of this. The sign, right? These two signs, two negatives make a positive, so this is negative 6 plus 4. And now we use the rule, right? The rule says what? When the signs are different, subtract. Keep the sign of the larger one. So we're going to subtract, right? 6 take away 4 is going to be 2, and then we keep the sign of the larger number. In this case, it's going to be what? Negative. And of course, we'll do a similar problem to this. If it was 6 take away 4, you'll note, right? The signs are different. What do? That's right, you subtract. 6 take away 4 is 2, and then you keep the sign of the larger number, which is plus.